details. Hi Ready Set Mums, it is Abby McKenna with you, and I am back to give you part 2 of my second daughter's birth experience with all of the gory details. Now, if you've been following on from the first video, you know by now I am at the hospital, in the bath, having an amazing time, very, very calm, not at all. I was making noises. I planned on a calm birth. I planned on trying to keep myself quite quiet and breathe throughout the process, but I found that I was making noises that I actually had no control over. I had no control over those noises. I tried to remain silent, and my body, it was just what my body wanted to do. It wanted to expel this sound, and it was a sound unlike I've ever heard before, but making that sound actually really, really helped me. So after I'd finished in the bath, they actually couldn't find the baby's heartbeat. So what they wanted me to do was get onto the bed, because they were concerned that the heartbeat that they were actually picking up was mine, and they couldn't monitor the baby's heartbeat. So I agreed to hop on the bed to have that monitored. And I'm on the bed, and they said, we'll just have you on your back for the next couple of minutes while we get the baby's heartbeat. And that is where I stayed. So I'd actually planned to have a water birth. In my head, I wanted to be on all fours or squatting. To me, that made sense with gravity. I actually asked for them to move me around, and at one stage they did move me around onto my knees, but they were worried that my knees weren't going to hold up, so they ended up putting me on the bed, which towards the end became very, very helpful. It wasn't my desired position, but I'll tell you how it helped later on. But literally my advice to you is just do whatever makes you feel comfortable. And I found moving around was the one thing that relieved a lot of pressure. So by this stage, they had a bit of a quick check, and I had started dilating. And it was interesting. My partner left because one of the midwives said, has Abby had anything to eat? No, she hasn't. She's going to need some electrolytes, some sugar. Go get her some juice. He brought back some juice. The next midwife said, don't give her that, she'll vomit. So I had juice, then I didn't have juice, then I had water, and then it was all over the place. And he came close to me to talk to me and tell me I was doing a good job. But while he was down there, he'd snuck in a coffee. Not a problem. But when you are in labor, well, when I was in labor, your senses are so heightened, and he started talking to me, and that smell of coffee, I was like, get away from me, I'm going to throw up. He was just trying to do the right thing. Poor thing. I did treat him really nicely, but if he had stayed near my face any longer, I was going to be sick on him. So I had to pull him away. And here it came. It kept coming, it kept coming. It was all in my back. It was an amazing experience. I was offered some injections to put some water bubbles in between my spine, because when you contract and your baby is spine on spine, it's spine hitting spine. So it was quite painful, but I'm terrified of needles. So I said that I was more than happy to put up with it. And that was going to be fine. And in my head, I kept saying, this isn't going to be forever. Just one more contraction. Just one more contraction brings me closer to seeing my baby. One more contraction brings me closer to seeing my baby. Ride the wave, breathe through it. And you reach a peak in your contraction. And then it comes down, and every contraction brings you closer to delivering your baby. It was amazing. And it's still at this stage, I was sleepy in between my contractions. And then a couple of hours before Ayla was born, I remember having a contraction and then not being sleepy anymore. I was alert, I was awake, I was terrified for no reason. And because I'm a person that was so in touch with my body, being scared actually really scared me. And I said to my midwife, I'm scared. And she said, why? I said, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I said, but you have to help me. Something's not okay. You have to help me. And in my birth plan, I had required and asked for no drugs, no pain relief. And all of a sudden, I started begging for it like a teenager. I literally looked at her when she laughed at me and said, Abby, everything is normal. You're doing a fantastic job. I said to her, but I'm your friend. I would help you if you were in trouble. Why aren't you helping me? Why don't you like me anymore? Everyone got so many laughs out of it. It was absolutely fantastic. I now found out that that is a moment called transition, where your body actually pumps adrenaline into your body as a primitive response to get you to run away from danger. I didn't know this before. If I had have known that, I would have known that that's what was happening and would have been perfectly fine. Not long later, my waters broke. And And that was amazing in itself, because the only reason that I knew is that I all of a sudden became wet. So my waters broke, there was a gush of water, and they said to me, oh, your waters broke. I was on my back, so I felt a little bit of moisture behind my bottom. Greg actually said it was just like a whole out of between my legs. I didn't notice it. The nurses and the midwives do an amazing job. They grab everything, pack it up before you even notice what's happened. And then as soon as my waters broke, I was almost ready to push. So my midwife said to me, are you ready to push yet? And I said, I'm not sure. And that was my big thing, is when am I going to know when I need to push? I felt a lot more pressure once my waters broke, but I didn't have the urge to push. And I actually said, I think so. And she said, well, have a go pushing with your next contraction, but only if your body is telling you to push. And trust me, your body's going to know. I sort of pushed and nothing was happening. It was really painful, but painful in a weird way. And I just said to her, it's painful in a weird way. Once again, they asked me to check. By then, my hands-off rule had gone out the window, right? I just was like, just do whatever you need to do to help me get this thing out of me. Every woman responds differently. And what had actually happened was that although I was fully dilated, a little bit of skin was caught across the baby's head. So they had to wait until that shifted or help that to shift. And then I decided that we would wait. As soon as that shifted, song on, ladies, game on. If you ever want to know if you are going to be ready to push, from my experience, and my experience only, don't worry about anyone telling you. Don't worry about knowing when the right time is. Your body will tell you. Your body is phenomenal. With every contraction, your whole body takes over from head to toe. And you literally you push, and you do not have a choice. Well, I didn't have a choice. My whole body took over. And I remember thinking to myself, I would never have been able to wait for Greg if he didn't make it at this moment, because my body was like, you're pushing and you don't get a chance. It's a whole wave. And the nurses said to me, because I was trying to push out of my vagina to bear down in your bottom like you're doing a big poo. As soon as that happened, it was much less painful. It was still painful, don't get me wrong, and everything started coming. And then I remember a few pushes in may have been 20 pushes, it may have been 2. To be honest, I can't really remember. But once I started needing to push, I think it was about 30 minutes before delivering beautiful Indiana. And a few pushes in, they actually said to me, you're doing such a good job. And I said to them, can you see the head? And they looked at me and said, you've still got to bring the baby down the birth canal. And I looked at them and went, isn't that what I've been doing this whole time? Right? Apparently not. You have to deliver the baby through the birth canal before you actually can push it out of your vagina. I thought that when you were ready to push, the baby was right there, right? It was ready to go. No, you have to push the baby through the birth canal and then push it out of your vagina. Now, for some people, this happens really, really quickly. For some people, not so much. So when my baby's head was actually there, they gave me the option to have a mirror, to have a look, and I chose to have a look. And for me, that was amazing to see what was going on. I was able to touch Indiana's head. I was able to see that her head was straight there. I could see the head being delivered. And although it sounds kind of gory, it really took my mind off the pain. And then her head was delivered, and then it was time to deliver her shoulders. But I've got to go back a second. Because this is quite important, I think. While I was pushing out Indiana's head, I remember a couple of pushes, and I could feel at the end of the contraction, so you can feel the head come out, and at the end of the contraction, I could feel her coming slightly back in. And it took me about 2 pushes or 3 pushes to get her head out. And at the last one, my contraction was lessening, and I could feel her starting to come back in. And the midwife said, contractions is finishing now, stop pushing. And in my mind, I went, no. Just no. I'm not doing this again. And I had one big push, and out her head came. And that may have been one of the reasons that I tore. I was also really worried, lady, about the ring of fire. So the ring of fire is what they talk about when the head starts coming out of your vagina, because the skin is so thin and it's a burning sensation. I honestly felt it for about half a second when that's what they're talking about. And it didn't bother me, because there was so much going on, and I was very, very focused, and it didn't bother me at all. And then it was time to deliver Indiana's shoulders, and I actually struggled to do this on my own, so they let me have a couple of pushes on my own. And then I can remember a midwife saying, help her, and they did. They grabbed Indiana by her shoulders and they pulled her out, and here was this amazing, amazing, beautiful baby. Now there is video number 2 in the episode of my natural vaginal birth with my second baby. I am going to have a third installment about my tearing and trying to deliver my placenta. So if you want to watch that, make sure you follow up on the next video.